Hey there, welcome back to another review, this time of the 1986 drama. Well, a little bit of some thriller aspects to it, but mostly a drama, A Killing Affair. Now, A Killing Affair is a very obscure, not very well-known movie starring Peter Weller, Kathy Baker, and John Glover. It's directed by David Saperstein, Saperstein, who actually was the guy who was responsible for writing the screenplay for Cocoon. And I think he also worked on the screenplay for Cocoon: The Return. Now, he would also go on to direct a film called Beyond the Stars after this. It's a movie with Martin Sheen and Christian Slater, which I've heard of, but I haven't really seen before. And then, regrettably, the last directorial effort that he had is the making of the Coming Out of the Shells tour. Yeah, yeah. And that's too bad because he actually did show a lot of promise with this film. Now, is this movie what I'd call a good movie? Not really. I definitely do disagree with Judy Stone from the San Francisco Chronicle. She says, an unexpected and unpredictable gem, an exceptional movie. I wouldn't call this a gem. Now, there were some things about it that were kind of unpredictable, and then I did think that that was a positive for the film, but yeah, I don't know, it's not the type of film that I really like to watch. It's mostly, like I said, it's mostly a drama. So about 90% of the film is dialogue. It's very dialogue heavy, and it's pretty slow paced, and it's very hard to get into it from the beginning. Like the first 20, 30 minutes are a really tough sit. But once Peter Weller's character shows up, then it actually becomes somewhat interesting. And I was surprised by how much I didn't hate it once Peter Weller came into the fold. Now, like I said, this is a 1986 film. It's based on a book called Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday by Robert Houston. It was filmed in Juliet, Georgia, and the film takes place in West Virginia in 1943 during World War II. And you have a cast that's comprised of Peter Weller, Kathy Baker, John Glover, Bill Smitrovich, and it also features a score by John Barry, which actually is really uh, a nice thing to listen to. It is a surprisingly good score for such a obscure, low budget movie. Um, John Barry would go on to do the score for Howard the Duck the same year, and I could kind of hear a little bit of the score from Howard the Duck in this score, but they don't sound at all the same. But there's a couple notes here and there that kind of sounded like the score that John Barry would do for Howard the Duck. Now, the film there's a very small cast of characters for the most part. It's Peter Weller and Kathy Baker and John Glover. That's your main cast. There's a few other actors and actresses, but they don't have a lot of screen time. Um, so in a lot of ways, it's Peter Weller and Kathy Baker's film. So during World War II, there's an outsider named Baston Morris, played by Peter Weller, complete with a Southern accent, and he actually pulls it off really well. He comes to a small town looking for work at the local mill, and he meets up with the town's employer, Pink Gresham, which is a weird name. I guess that's why this VHS cover is pink, because the guy's name is Pink. I don't know, but I just find that really strange. Like, what kind of first name is Pink? So Pink Gresham, played by Bill Smitrovich, he abuses the men, he has affairs with the women, he's a total douchebag, and his wife is played by Kathy Baker. And she was basically forced to marry this guy because her brother, played by John Glover, who's a preacher in this, and he opens up the film preaching. And he forced her to marry this guy when she was like really young. So there was no love in this relationship at all whatsoever. It was a forced relationship. You find that out, of course, later down the road. Pretty much, pretty far into the film's running time is when that little bit of information is revealed. But for the most part, you don't really know about that until later. And that's one thing the film did do a good job with. It did a good job with these sort of flashback scenes that kind of explained the backstory of Kathy Baker's character and explained what you believe, what might be Peter Weller's character's backstory and what happened to his family, but then again might not be. But it is pretty well crafted and well manufactured when it comes to those particular sequences. Now, I do like the atmosphere and the mood of the film too, because it's a very small picture. So it takes place in, for the most part, in a secluded area in the woods in the South. The character Kathy Baker is playing, she's pretty much locked away in this house by her husband, and she's pretty much alone with these dogs who have in the woods who have, I guess they're like evil hound dogs or something. Like these dogs are like vicious. And so there's always the threat of these dogs that'll come in, this pack of wild dogs that might come in and maybe hurt her or cause a lot of havoc. Um, and if that isn't enough, then here comes Peter Weller's character, Baston Morris, who comes in, and it's actually Gaston Morris. It's Baston, yeah, not Gaston. But Baston comes in, and he comes in and basically starts digging his way into Maggie Resham's life, played by Kathy Baker. And you find out that he is the one that murdered her husband, Pink Gresham, because she found his body in a shed on her property. And you find out that, well, from Peter Weller anyway, he did it out of self-defense, or that's what that's how his story, what his story was at first. But then you find out it was murder and it was revenge, or was it? But it sounds it's the film kind of leaves it a bit ambiguous as to whether or not Peter Weller's character really is a killer or he isn't. Um, and Peter Weller does a great job playing this character who is somewhat sympathetic. I mean, there's a great scene where he's recounting what happened to his family, and then there's other scenes where he's psychotic. So, and really intimidating, like even more intimidating than he was in Firstborn. Like he swings an axe at Kathy Baker's head, in one scene, and he's covered in blood from all these dogs that he shot on the property. So he's a very intimidating character in this, and so the film does a excellent job keeping you guessing. You're like, okay, is he a killer? Is he not? You think it's going to go somewhere, and then it doesn't really necessarily go where you think it's going to go. So in some aspects, I do agree that with Judy Stone, it was kind of unpredictable in that regard, and that's pretty difficult to leave it kind of ambiguous in the end on whether or not a certain character really was a murderer or not. Now, he definitely is an unhinged character, though, because he completely goes off the rails and starts, even if he was innocent, he is going too far by trying to take Kathy Baker, trying to take Maggie and her kids as a replacement for his family that was murdered. I mean, that's taking things way too far into really twisted territory. But Maggie isn't helping either because she actually ends up falling for Baston, and there's a love scene that they have together. So it's like, okay, is this just a one night stand? But then it seems like she does actually show some compassion for him because even though he's kind of a crazy potential criminal, he's the only man in her life that seems to actually care about her and actually genuinely maybe actually love her because her actual husband, Pink, never loved her, cheated on her. He was an asshole. and her brother set her up with him, and her father locked her mother up in a shed on their property in order so her mother wouldn't get away, because her father was so paranoid about the mother escaping and going off with another woman, not another woman, another man, oh, another woman. Oh my God, she's a lesbian too. Holy shit. Uh, no, going off with another man. So we locked her up in a shed. So he eventually gets arrested, though, and this is all sort of flashback stuff. And she's had a really tumultuous life. And pretty much it kind of leads to the ending where Peter Weller's character he's ambushed at the house, he's cornered. There's the sheriff and a bunch of other townspeople. They've got weapons, they're shooting at him. He jumps out the window, gets them on a chase after him. He thinks he outsmarts them, and because he gets back into the house, Kathy Baker defends herself, and she stabs him. And then he actually dies in a pretty brutal way. You don't see it, but just the thought of it is pretty bloody and pretty definitely brutal, pretty intense. Because the remaining dogs that were still alive, the wild dogs, they break through the window and pretty much eat Baston alive. You don't see it, but you hear Peter Weller's blood curdling screams. You're like, ah, 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 typical Peter Weller screams, which are very unique to Peter Weller. And so it's like one of those like, oh, was he it? And then it's kind of leaves it up in the air. You're like, is he innocent? Did he really kill his family? Because then John Glover's character comes in, and before Kathy Baker's character ends up stabbing Peter Weller, her brother, played by John Glover, he goes in and he's pretty much explaining to her that I'm trying to see who else. It's his character's name. I wonder if they have his name. Shep Shepherd. So Shep, played by John Glover, explains to her that no, you're wrong. This is what really happened. Baston killed his family. There were witnesses, and your husband was with me the whole day on Saturday. So you're like, oh no, oh my God, he misled her. He's manipulative. He's a sociopath. He really is a killer. But then at the same time, I'm like, well, I don't know if I can trust John Glover because he's the one that set Maggie up with this asshole Pink to begin with when she was underage. So I don't even know if I can even trust that guy. And he's a preacher. That's saying a lot. I can't trust a preacher. So yeah, Peter Weller dies, and then Maggie, Kathy Baker, then leaves on a train and takes her kids with her and gets out of Dodge and pretty much tells her brother, I'm leaving because she's earned some self-respect for herself, and thanks to the ordeal that she's dealt with Baston and with everything that's happened. And so that's pretty much what happens. That's a killing affair. That's how it ends. So it's kind of empowering in that sense. I thought it was okay because there were some powerful performances by Kathy Baker and Peter Weller. Kathy Baker did not really go on to do that much after this. She had a few bit roles in a few films, and she was on some sitcoms, or not really sitcoms, more like soap operas. And she pretty much had more success in theater than she did on film, and it's too bad because I can definitely tell that she's a talented actress here. Peter Weller, of course, steals the show, though. He steals every scene that he's in. He elevates this very low-budget movie to a whole new height that it would not be without him. And I think it's worth a watch just for Peter Weller's performance, because it is another smoldering, just great performance by Peter Weller. Uh, it's a character who definitely is troubled. he's troubled, and you don't know if it's psychologically or if it is by grief, and it does leave you with questions, about his innocence, and also what constitutes revenge. Like, when is a revenge kill acceptable? Um, because is it acceptable? I mean, even if this pink guy did actually, in fact, kill Peter Weller's family, his kids and his wife, in cold blood with an axe, because Pink was cheating on Peter Weller's character with Peter Weller's wife, Baston's wife, then maybe, yeah, but is it still justified? Is murder really justified? Because that's what Baston did. He didn't even want a job. He showed up and basically found a way to get Pink alone and then killed him with an axe. So, I guess maybe, revenge is a dish best served cold. But yeah, I mean, it doesn't sound like much, and in a lot of ways it isn't. But like I said, it's a film that is heavily reliant upon its performances, and the performances are good. There really isn't anything in this film in terms of acting wise that I thought was bad or particularly awful or anything like that. The direction by David Saperstein I thought was competent, solid, nothing spectacular, but it definitely is something better than his directing for something like the Coming Out of the Shells tour, like the making of the Coming Out of the Shells tour. It's not really saying much, but hey, at least it's better than that. The film has definitely helped it a lot in terms of its atmosphere and its mood by John Barry's score. It gives it a cinematic feel that it would not have without it. And yeah, I mean, there's a certain just griminess to it. This kind of just, oh, it's an old-fashioned drama, sort of murder mystery, and it's just kind of a slice of a bygone era, and just the whole idea of being isolated in the woods with nothing but trees and a whole, a river separating you. So you have trees and a river separating you. You can't go anywhere. There's nowhere to run. There's really nowhere to hide. And so it does kind of amplify the suspense a little bit. But mainly, I watched it for Peter Weller. I gotta be honest, I would have never bought this unless, Peter Weller wasn't on the cover. If Peter Weller wasn't on the cover, I would have never bought this. And yeah, I only paid $1, so it's not like I paid that much for the film. But yeah, I mean, I thought it was going to be a sappy love story because of the color of the VHS and the taglines beyond passion due to the edge of terror. I thought it was going to be like a period piece erotic thriller, and it really isn't. So it plays out kind of like a play. So I could totally have seen this being a play on stage. So yeah, it was surprising in some aspects because I didn't expect it to be okay. It's a time waster for me, for Peter Weller, for Kathy Baker, for John Glover, for the atmosphere, for the setting, for the score by John Barry. But mainly, what really makes the film unable to be anything other than average is its pacing. Its story isn't particularly that interesting. It isn't anything you haven't seen before. So that is a problem. That's a big problem that holds the film back a lot. But for what it was, for what it was trying to do, A Killing Affair was a decent affair. It was a decent affair. So I don't know what else to say about the movie except it was a rated out of 5 stars. I would give A Killing Affair 3 out of 5 stars. Um, and it is on YouTube, so if you're curious about the film, go ahead and check it out for yourself. But anyway, yeah. Thanks for watching, and as always, I will see you guys later. See ya.